All
right.
They didn't think.
Welcome, everybody, to the May 15th Administrative Services Committee meeting. Our first order is to approve the minutes from April 17th.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here to speak to the committee? No. We'll close the privilege of the floor and move on to local law intro 623, a local law amending local law 1322, providing for a management salary plan for county officers and employees. Payroll manager for the Department of Finance.
Hello, Kitty Crow, Director of Finance. If you recall way back when we were doing the 2023 budget hearings, I did present then that we were adding a proposing a purchasing manager position for the finance department. We did adjust the FTEs in another area but we ended up net like a half of the new position. But we did downsize in one other area in the department just to try to stay, pretty close to our year-over-year FTEs. The payroll manager is needed for a variety of reasons, but we are doing some restructuring in the finance department, and a lot of other payroll duties are kind of scattered between myself, Todd, and Janelle. And we also would like a new payroll manager to focus more on policy, procedure, time and attendance procedures. We have time and attendance clerks throughout all the county departments. And then there tends to be sometimes when they have questions, there's no, they don't want to pull a payroll coordinator away from their work doing payroll and just kind of have somebody who has more of authority to establish better policies and procedures for time and attendance, and also to work more directly with HR when interpretation of contract, collective bargaining agreements, come up, and somebody just really focused on some of these other things, and that'll free up time for myself, Todd, and Janelle to focus on some other areas of finance. So this is a new title for the county. We worked with HR in establishing the job duties for this, and then they do their part in terms of determining what the appropriate salary range is and grade for that management title.
And can you explain the funding? Where's it?
It's just included in our 2023 budget in terms of our total wages, that our total net dollars for wages are in our budget.
Oh, okay. So,
But you were able to, did you just say kind of cut half or something?
We reduced it when we proposed our 2023 budget. We had going back to 2022, in the 2022 budget, we had included a purchasing agent position for just half the year because we started it later in the year, July 1. The 2023 budget includes that position for a whole year. But we also reduced one position in our insurance division. So the net effect of the purchasing agent being for a full year, the new payroll manager, and reducing a position in the insurance administration resulted in a net increase of a half of a position.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns? All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just as a preview for next month, if not next month, potentially July, but I would like as a discussion, part of a discussion item also, and part of potentially a local law for another new title for finance, because we are working on a fiscal restructuring of all fiscal staff throughout the county. And, I'd like an opportunity just to present to your group what our long-term plan is and the overall org structure once those changes happen, and how the new title that I'm hoping to propose next month will fit into that new org chart.
if you
Okay.
think of it, if you know which month it's going to be, let Olivia know.
I will. I will. I just have to make sure that I can get all the stuff that HR is going to need to do
But
that, so that
I
they
want you
can.
to rest assured, if you don't do that and you want to discuss it, I will allow you to discuss
Oh,
it
okay.
at the committee.
Yes. At a minimum, I will discuss the new organization chart, proposed org chart. It may just not be that we have the other title we want to create that local law ready for. I'm hoping it'll be ready for June, but if it's not ready for June, it'll definitely be ready July.
Okay. Thanks, Kenny.
Yep.
Okay. Proposed resolution, confirm reappointment, Director of Human Resources. I guess, oh, Patrick is here.
Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. So this is to reappoint Deborah Mikowski as our HR Director. She is currently filling out the remainder of, I think maybe 2 HR Directors ago, a term, 6-year term. And so this is to extend her to her very own 6-year term.
Hopefully she stays.
We hope so. I think a lot of people are very, very fond of the work that she's doing. I realize negotiating, I think in her first year here, negotiating 2 union contracts amongst various other duties. And doing a very good job, working very closely with the law department in various issues. So that is what's before you today.
I think we're all familiar with Debbie, so. Any questions for Patrick? None? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next resolution is setting salary for internship positions.
Please.
Still Patrick Slagle, County Attorney.
Still.
And Jennifer Rissel from Human Resources, representing Debbie Mikowski. We typically fill 4 to 6 internship positions in a year. Health and Human Services has 2 open right now, and so does the Public Defender. We've been able to fill 1 of those thus far. The salary is currently set at $9 an hour. As you're aware, it's well below the minimum wage in New York State. So this proposal is to mirror the New York State minimum wage for interns going forward, so that we don't have to continually change it. We hope that will help with recruitment.
And historically, this was, I believe it was back in 2012. We saw it was set at $7, or was raised on a frequent basis and then just stopped. It hasn't changed. 2016 was set at $9. I think before that it was set a little bit lower, and for some reason it just wasn't raised. And so obviously for recruitment issues, we're finding that individuals are looking to be paid at least minimum wage. That's the request is to mirror that as that adjusts.
Don't we have to pay minimum? Yeah.
Is an internship a particular category that you don't have to, or is it?
It's a specific site title that was negotiated with the CSEA.
Seems like it would have to, you know.
It sounds a little bit funny not being with what the rest of the
Yeah.
state's doing.
I feel it's safer, and
We really want you, but we don't want you.
And it's good
Right.
I mean, you're not gonna get somebody for,
right, it's a good recruitment tool to
Yeah.
get people in here to, there's a difference between a regular intern that someone comes from college to just get experience before they're, finish their studies, and an intern is someone under this that comes in actually looking for that work experience to get paid and hopefully can progress into a full-time job, which the county currently does have plenty of positions available. So it's important to really recruit individuals into this so that they can begin actually working, doing projects, and hopefully continue to stay on and become full-time county employees.
So that title intern is a little bit tricky, I think, because I was thinking initially, this is someone coming from college and just, looking to gain experience, but that's not necessarily the case.
Correct, and it is very odd because you have those specific titles you have to use, and we actually have an internship executive policy bulletin that talks about if you're an intern coming here from high school or college, it's unpaid, you're here for just experience, and you fill out various forms. Oftentimes, we have agreements with Fredonia and JCC, they'll send students here for internships, but this is a different internship.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So just for my own curiosity, and you might have answered this, can we pay them $9 an hour? Can you pay them less than, or an intern can be unpaid, right?
Correct.
So we could pay them
Hopefully it was
$9.
illegal to have unpaid interns.
No,
There's a different name for that.
yeah.
Okay, so we could pay them $9 if we wanted to.
And you could pay all.
I'm not
Yes.
saying I want to. I'm just,
Right.
it's just,
Yeah, and they are budgeted at 927 for this year.
Who said?
I would still recommend
Oh, this
15
sounds,
from-
I think
I know
it sounds-
927 is more appealing, but
Yeah.
I go to the full 15.
I'd like
idea
to
how many
table
you
it
have?
if it's at 927. I don't want to.
Any idea how many you have?
We have 4 currently requested for summertime employment, and it is being used for college students right now to gain some of that experience, but it's on the paid side so that they're making a little income while they're learning. We currently only have 1 of them filled because the recruitment difficulty is obviously there at $9 an hour.
Could there be more?
There potentially could be more if other departments choose to use it. It is a labor class position, so there's no minimum qualifications with it. So other departments could use it as a stepping stone to attract employees or candidates who are finishing up education and getting their foot in the door while they're finishing maybe clinicals or taking an exam.
Okay, good. Thank you. Got nothing.
Everybody good? All in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next resolution. Supporting passage of A 6581A S 6226, an act to amend chapter 405 of the laws of 2007, amending the tax law relating to increasing hotel, motel taxes in Chautauqua County in relation to extending the expiration of such provisions to repeal certain provisions of the tax law relating thereto, and providing for the repeal of certain provisions upon expiration thereof. Wow, I felt like a lawyer for a second there.
So we were here last month where we put forth a resolution asking that the state continue the 5% occupancy tax, the additional 2% above the 3%. That is now on the floor of both the Assembly and the Senate. What this resolution does is actually calls upon the legislature to support what's on the floor and hopefully approve the passage of those bills. I note a couple of changes from what we requested and what is currently sitting on the floor. The extension will actually be through 2025, not 2026. I got a print. I had trouble with the printer, so it's a little bit smaller. And some of the wording is actually changed too as well for the use of the occupancy tax. When it comes to the 3%, it remains the same as it currently is, except for there's an addition that says that at least 1/2 of such amount shall be allocated for the official tourism promotion agency of the county for marketing, advertising, and promoting the county. The idea behind that is in the explanation that was put forth from the Senate was that since this money's being collected from the hotels and motels, a portion of it should really make sure it's focused on promoting their industry. So again, that first, the 3/5, half of that must be used for the for promotion of marketing, advertising of tourism. When it comes to the remainder, which would be 2/5, everything remains the same, except for, again, they put another provision there saying that, however, at least 1/2 of such amount shall be allocated for activities that control, treat, and or remove invasive or nuisance submerged aquatic vegetation, reduce harmful algae blooms, or provide shoreline cleanup. So other than those changes, again, on the floor, again, of both the Assembly and the Senate is extending that 5%. So this resolution asks that the legislature support that.
Questions, comments?
I would like to make a motion to amend, to amend by removing those sections, Section A, Tax Law 1202, J, number 9, and in Section B, tax that just specifically says that requires a half of the official tourism promotion agency should be allocated to that, what Patrick just read. Because I think that the legislature may very well consider the suggestions by its state's representatives, but wishes to maintain its discretionary authority to expend bed tax revenues in a manner that shall determine as being in the best interests of the county. So in other words, when you put in the requirement on the state level that it be half of it go to this and half of another pool go to that, that's really taking the discretionary decision from the county and making it to the state. And let's suppose that something changes over the next 2 years, you'd have to go to the state to get that amended. Whereas it would be pretty easy to have that discretion and decision-making stay at discretion for expenditures for these purposes in such a manner reserved to Chautauqua County. So I really don't see the need for adding that at the state level, because it can very easily be, it can be governed at the county level. And I think it really should be, because that's part of what legislators do is, vote for budgetary things. And if there is some need to change something, why not make it changing it at a local law level, at a county law level, rather than the state? Because we really don't want the state involved in a lot of our, occupancy tax money. And I don't think it would make a difference in terms of what would actually be said and decided.
So I guess one point to draw attention to this is that local law 6-13 passed back in 2015 dealing with occupancy tax says that all revenues resulting from the imposition of occupancy tax of 5% shall be allocated for any of the purposes and uses authorized by Section 1202J of the New York State Tax Law, as may be amended from time to time, and such resolutions as may be adapted by the county legislature consistent therewith. So essentially, back in 2013, the local law was already made so that regardless of what the county legislature did, whatever New York State ends up passing, we would follow that and for the uses. So I just want to make sure I point out that so that we won't have to amend or change our local law at any point, because it's already set forth that we would follow Section 1202J. In terms of amending it, I guess, again, the resolution here is just to support passage of what's on the floor. Amending it wouldn't change what the state's already doing. Just that the requirement is that, or expectation is that once we make the request, like we did last month, the state does what they want to do. They could add, change, do whatever language they want to. It's on the floor now. We're simply not saying that you don't have abilities or powers to do what you would like to do. The request really is just that we, as the county legislature, you as the county legislator, support what's on the floor already. So I hesitate a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think if you did amend it, it wouldn't change the fact of what's on the floor. I think the request has already been made of the state to extend our 5%, and they've taken up that, and they're willing to extend it to 2025. They're just adding some additional language. So nothing, I mean, I guess you, at the end of the day, you could not support the passage of what they have on the floor, but there's nothing really to amend what they're already doing.
Well, I mean, I've read the, the parts of the bill that actually do state this. And I guess I'm thinking, I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is, I understand that there are parts of this particular law that are governed by New York State. There are parts, this is a very deep, when you start looking at the law itself, it's pretty detailed. But I'm thinking that it would make sense for us to reserve that discretion for expenditures, because we really don't know. I don't see the purpose of giving that, putting that into the law. If you don't put it into the law, and I'm pretty sure that I saw that it was originally, I think it was on either 17th or 19th of April that Assemblyman Goodell put that in whatever formal process. But I think that he could probably, I guess I'm thinking it could be amended if we voted that jurisdiction should really stay at the county level. I mean, that's part of what we do. So
Well, I think the taxing authority, the powers that the legislature has, comes from the state. I mean, the state is granted the
understand
ability to pass local law originally back in the 80s to have the occupancy tax. I guess my legal opinion would be really amending this wouldn't reserve us any powers. I mean, we could make a request that, the Senate and Assembly cut out that language and return it the way it was. But
It's
amending
kind
this specific resolution would not change or not reserve us any powers, because again, this is only a resolution simply saying we support what the Assembly and the Senate have pending on the floor.
But I guess, to address that actual point, our Assembly and the Senator putting in something that we are not in favor of. I don't think that, this was, I think that on a county level, if we don't support it, is that the right thing to do on the state level? I don't think that's the intent of, our representatives, I guess, our state representatives, or I wouldn't think so. I mean, and I fully expect that I don't know what anybody else thinks about it, but I think that it does make a difference. When you say it won't make a difference, I think it could make a difference if we say, no, we really don't support legislating on the state level that a half of this occupancy tax money, the 3/5 and the 2/5 are being designated for specific things, and that the state is going to implement that.
Right. I guess just, I want to clarify, I'm not trying to mean that it won't make a difference, because
Okay.
you have voice, and obviously the Assemblyman and the Senator are listening. I just want to make sure it's clear that if this gets amended, it doesn't automatically change the language that's
Yeah,
being
I get
discussed
that.
and debated. Okay.
I do understand that. I understand that this resolution is in support of all this language and asking, and as you pointed out, that is a change in the language. And it does specifically designate, amounts to be allocated. And it's going to go through as a state law. So I think legislators, when you say, I think legislators, we should have the discretion for the expenditures. So there you have it. So my motion is to amend, or I don't know if I'm using the correct terminology, but my motion is to amend by removing those sections that designate that at least 1/2 of such amount in section A and 1/2 in another part of the occupancy tax in section B.
So we have a motion to amend. Do we have a second?
I got a question. I can't do that, right? Right now? Got a question
Can I ask a question?
Do you have a question?
for the amendment?
You guys question what the amendment's about. It's not
Yeah.
subject to debate yet.
So the way I understand it, and this is the first I've heard of this, is that we're requesting New York State, meaning our two representatives, for the 5% to be returned. But So they have to grant it to us in order for us to do that. That's section A, okay, part A, whatever. But part B is, we had always had the wherewithal, or whatever the word, to decide how we spent it as long as it was in that tourism category. And now they're changing the language of our initial local law to decide how we can spend it. That's the issue, right?
Correct. They always kind of defined, the parameters and gave a list of, they just didn't say you can use it for tourism. They gave
Right.
the list in there.
Right.
I would say they further defined it. They want to ensure, again, that the money is going towards that. When it gets to the 2%, they made more specific that it's not to be used for, administrative costs or for people's salaries. They really want the money going towards the lakes. For the 3/5, they really want the money going towards supporting tourism. Specifically, they want to make sure that you're advertising the businesses. If you all recall the debates and the discussion last
Right.
month on various hotel,
So-
motel owners.
So they have within their wherewithal to do that,
Correct.
and they've done that in the past, but not as specifically as they are doing it now.
One thing they did when they first created the law that allowed for the occupancy tax altogether, they created specifically what it can be used for and what tourism is defined as, and they listed a bunch of that currently sits in the law right now. They're just redefining that again, ensuring that half of that 3/5 goes towards specifically marketing. So they do have that ability to change the law and edit
And
the
by
laws.
they, you mean,
New York State, the
okay.
Senate and Assembly.
So let's just be realistic here. We're May 15th. Legislature basically ends a month from now, end of June, probably. If we were to amend this, or could this be amended there or delayed, and then once the session is over, would we lose the right for this renewal? Or could we?
I don't foresee them completely, if you wish to amend it and made a suggested change, that they would just totally pull the plug and say you don't get anything. However, I don't know. I have no control over what the Assembly or Senate
Right.
does
We
or
have the
thinks.
two versions of the law, the previous one that goes till November 2023, the one that they're proposing.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think it's still in the consideration stage, I would say. I don't know, that's what I was looking at today.
Right, it's still in consideration,
But we
So-
really have about a month, right, before they go home, and then,
Yeah, but you're talking about a pretty small amendment. I guess I'm thinking in March, when we were discussing actually, but possibly tabling the occupancy tax for the increase for 8%, we were talking about tabling it for looking at, well, what does, a number of questions. And the argument was, we can't do that because there's not enough time. And now it's 2 months later, and the question is, can we, they have changed the language, and they're anticipating still being able to put this through. So I don't really think that, the timing of it is necessarily, it's not I think it's already on file, but what you see are the two different versions. And it hasn't gone to vote, and I don't think that the delay is going to make any difference. I don't know. I wouldn't anticipate that. I don't know, but I think that it's kind of an odd, 2 months ago, it was like, no, we can't table it. We have to do this because of the thing. And now there's another thing we're considering.
Just in the background, I have a question. How did those amendments get proposed? I mean, were they proposed by the assemblyman or the senator to begin with, which would indicate that that's what they're in favor of?
They were
So-
proposed by the Assembly.
Okay, so is it a motion that maybe the legislature would otherwise make? That you would make a motion that
That's
be
what-
amended?
That's what I did, was make a motion. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think maybe what Kitty's saying, instead of amending
official
this
motion.
resolution, like an official, like
a motion to
Oh,
the,
would they on the state level
No,
make
would
them?
you, maybe, because he's saying that you can amend this, but that's not gonna impact what's on the floor. It doesn't automatically amend it. Like the assemblyman would have to propose that amendment on the floor, right?
Right, so, because again, this is again, just it's a very simple resolution, just saying you support.
Yeah, but it
bills.
certainly just, I have to agree with Legislator Parker. It just seems like if you say that you support what they're doing, then you support it. I mean, if you
So it could
you
be.
support the whole thing, which includes these new changes. And if you opt to support that, our budget is not going to be in accordance with those. Our budget is not in accordance with what is being proposed. Let me put it that way. The budget would have to change.
Right,
The
'cause-
2023 budget would have to
Because
change.
there's some salaries, I think, that are.
And also on the tourism side, I can check exactly, but just from my recollection, we don't spend half of that money on CCBB. And what you described to me says that's the new proposal, is that half of the 3% portion has to go to the promotional agency.
But is this for effective November of this year, so it really mostly would impact?
November of this year.
Budget?
December, yes, because the current 5% expires.
And both funds have substantial reserves, so that would
Yeah,
cover the last
but
month of the year.
it's different than-
There's a potential, I mean, I could rework some language where it's, if the amendment goes through, where it's supporting the passage of,
So
This,
what would you
with
advise?
exception of-
Yeah, that's what you advise is reworking the language, or, I mean, so far we don't have this.
well, I guess at this point, we really won't have too much advisement, because I think that's more of a legislative decision, whether or not they want to.
I'm talking
Do
about
this.
legally, what would you do? You would say, I said, I made a motion to amend by removing the following sections. How
Yeah.
would you say it
I
if you
would-
were talking about?
I'd craft some language where it be, whereas the support the passage of in entirety with the exception of this,
Okay.
and
Those
whereas
two
you,
clauses.
yeah, so I'd craft something of that nature, therefore, legislature supports passage of this with the changes above, and put that forward. Again, I'm not sure of what weight that will
Yeah. I
have,
mean,
whether or not that carries more weight as opposed to like actual motion by the full body next Wednesday.
So if we said, the Chautauqua County Legislature hereby requests that its state representatives, put forth what you said, but then says, we request that those sections be eliminated.
Mhm.
So,
Right, that's definitely, I guess, the way to do it through the amendment as you proposed.
so considering all this, we have a motion to amend to how we would
well,
end
however
up
we would
working
end up
it
doing
out. So we have that motion. Is there a second for that?
I guess I have too many questions to second myself.
I think it was-
do as well. I feel like, I mean, I saw this 10 minutes ago, you know what I mean? I'd have to really,
Like, what does this do to impact what we wanted it to do? I don't know that answer.
It requires, it basically, you mean, what is the actual impact? Well, it sounds like it has some budgetary impacts, but it also requires that a half of that money of the 3/5, which is tourism money, goes to this, what is it,
It says for,
This came from.
for the
At least one
official
half.
tourism promotion agency, which is the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau. And then with the 2%,
And I'm okay.
is that at least one half of such amount, which is the waterways and the lakes, shall be allocated for activities that control, treat, and/or remove invasive or nuisance submerged aquatic vegetation, reduce harmful algae blooms, or provide shoreline cleanup. And I'm just saying that why do we need the state to put that in their law and say that half of the 2/5 and half of the 3/5? Why can't it be decided on by the legislators who are us? I don't think and realistically, it would change what the legislature ultimately does, but I think it makes a difference when you think of things like who's supposed to be in charge of this county money, I mean, I know that the state has to put through the 3% and the 2%, but I think that it's fair for the legislature to say, why would we give them the authority to say that half of the legislative money has to go to that? Why wouldn't it be decided on the county level? Why? Yeah, go ahead.
Like, and you know, what happens, let's just say this resolution was defeated in the full legislature, is there a consequence to that?
No.
I don't know, that's something I could definitely find out ahead of,
Because it
auditing
then still
control
looks
and.
at the state would just be debated there, but then that would show that the legislature wasn't, if it turned out that way, wasn't in
Right.
full support of how it's written now.
And it could be a reason to delay the thing. And
But then it would make more sense to say what you
I-
would support in the resolution.
I could definitely find that out ahead of, again,
Of
further
auditing.
Yeah, because
committees.
obviously,
You know,
yeah,
Is
the-
it-
we don't want to
think in-
jeopardize our ability to,
Right.
to tax.
Nothing should ever be considered routine, I guess. I guess just historically what happens is the resolution's made to ask for the extension. It's granted, it's put on the floor for debate, and then the following month is we do this resolution supporting the passage. So we have no historical data that I know of for this county. What happens if you ask them to extend it, they say we'll extend it, we don't pass the follow-up resolution supporting it. We've never done that before. So there's no.
could
I
give a
mean-
good reason not for them to support it and say your locals don't support this. Why would we pass this?
I mean, I could reach out to our, elected leaders and ask them, perchance if this doesn't pass,
I mean, really.
what happens? I mean, do they just sit on it? Do they kill it themselves? I don't know
And-
that.
I just want to say that I think that this is a simple thing. I don't think there'll be a delay. I think that would be a reason to, I think what you have is on March 22nd, we passed the occupancy tax. It was unanimous, 5%. And so the language that was decided at that point included most of the language that is in, if you go to the law. And really, as Patrick's, as county attorney
Patrick, it's
so I am so sorry.
Patrick's fine.
As the county attorney said, he said the two different pieces of language, the two clauses in there are the differences. We passed something that we passed and supported, and now we're being asked to support something different, and we could continue to support what we originally passed, which would not include the half of such amount. So it's not like, I mean, the thing is that what we got was like, I had to go and look for it, which is fine. But it was so small that I thought, well, what's the rest of the story? So all I'm saying is, I think that we passed something that was pretty well established and simple. And now we're being asked to pass something that is, just arguably, obviously, because I'm arguing it, is, can be decided on the county level. And I really don't think it makes sense to, we're talking, what do we hear from all our people who come and talk? We don't want the state to make our decisions, anyway. So that's my.
I got you.
Yeah, so we actually passed something simple and we could still, support that.
I guess my reservations, and I understand what you're saying, is that just with my background a little bit, that both of them really don't control, the majorities control where they're at, and either one of them are in the majority right now. So the majority at the time could say, well, your locals are not in favor of this. Let's put this aside. I mean, I don't want to take that risk. I understand what you're saying, and we all complain about New York State putting these unfunded mandates or dictating what we're at. But at the same time, we're still asking the state to grant this tax authority for this. So I can't support it. Sorry, Susan.
Yeah, and to that, honestly, I mean, the assemblyman and perhaps the senator are currently in favor of something. I personally am not comfortable saying, I want to change their wording at that level, not on this short notice and not having had time to look through it. So,
Okay, so just to keep going, I appreciate the comments and the opinions and the thought and the dialogue, and I'll stop right there. There was a motion on the floor. There was not a second. So as far as this resolution, does anybody want to say anything else? I personally don't have a problem with it and would like to see the tourism maybe get a bigger piece of the pie than they were getting
It's
previously.
not going to do that.
No, but that's what I'd like to see. So anybody else? So we're going to vote on this resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, carried 4-1. And our last resolution, supporting passage of A 6692 and A 6206, an act to amend the tax law in relation to extending the authorization for Chautauqua County to impose an additional 1% rate of sales and compensating use taxes. And that additional 1% is already what we're doing. We're not adding a 1% onto the tax that we're already collecting, correct?
Correct. And
Patrick
this is,
Slagle.
Patrick Slagle still here. So
Glad you are.
just as the previous resolution, last month, the legislature passed the resolution to seek the extension of the 1%. This is to support the passage of bills that are currently on the floor. I will note actually a typo, if you may. In the second whereas clause, the pending legislation is actually through November 30th, 2025.
November 2025.
November 2025. And in the third whereas clause, number 1, that would also reflect November 30th, 2025. Has that to be treated just as a typo?
Mhm.
I know originally the resolution that was passed was seeking a 3-year extension, but the bills on the floor are extending just to are proposing to extend to 2025.
Questions about this? Comments, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That brings us to other. Patrick, do you have any other?
I've got no other.
Is there any other from anywhere else behind me?
no.
Seeing no one else in front of me, and Patrick saying he doesn't have any other. We need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Seconded by Lisa. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
We're gonna talk to them.
No.
Month and a half. Well,
I got this.
school, month.